$760 and then $21,000 for consultant services. Yep.
Make a motion to approve the two invoices from PH+A, invoice number 03513.1 and invoice number 03513.11 for a total amount of $197,760.
Second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Nancy Toomey,
Yes.
John Coot. Yes. Greg Steffler,
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Nancy Simlak,
Yes.
Mark Oxford. Yes. Pat Tompkins, yes, motion passes. I'll turn it over to Mark with PTH or budget and so forth.
Yes. So the budget update, as we do monthly, the highlighted here is just reflects the invoices that you just approved. Otis project manager there on line 22, the 34,245.50, that was just approved. You go to the next page 2, gets down to the basic design development, architectural basic services at 165. And then the breakdown on the next page of the audio visual technology design, 11,760, and then the A&E reimbursable services for the wetland consultant and traffic analysis, 15,600 total, which corresponds to the invoices that we just approved. We head down to the last page. We are now at committed 10% of the funds. Approved invoices to date are on 2%, remaining balance of committed funds at 8%. We are currently trending on budget as we continue on.
Does anyone have any questions about the budget? Nancy, please.
I'm assuming that we'll, at some point, we'll receive information about what was found in the audiovisual technology design, as well as the furniture review and, I guess those two.
Yeah, maybe Mark or Joel, give us some, projected timeline of when we would be
Well, we had,
looking at those things and refining those budgets.
we had a meeting with town staff to do audio visual. That includes the program room, the video screens in the multi-purpose room, fixed monitors in the various rooms. So every room has been planned out, and that's what was in that, invoice. The consultant did a design development set of drawings, infrastructure and equipment. In this project, I think it makes sense to put audio visual into the general contractor's bid so that everything's one package. Have trouble sort of when it's sometimes who's doing the infrastructure, who's doing the equipment. So everything's tied into the general bid, and that drawing is in the PM&C and the TTH cost estimates right now. We'll have another pass, but it's based on meetings with town staff.
So
I'm sorry.
just in layman's terms, if this room, in the new building, you've met with town staff, established, we have a drop down screen, we have these speakers, we have all this technology. That's in discussion, and that's all the cost estimators have that detail, and that's what the current estimate, which is within budget, is based on. That's correct.
And I'm assuming we have that document that you held up. Was that sent to everybody?
Is that what?
Was that sent to everybody?
That's in the set of drawings that went out. I mean, I can explain it. I don't know if we want to take up the time to do it tonight, but I can basically explain.
Okay.
Every room that's a program room has a monitor and sound. The multi-purpose room has a screen like this, plus wall monitors so everybody can see.
Right.
Pardon me?
It's two screen?
One screen. one large screen for the full room, and then 7-foot monitors for the half rooms.
Oh, okay.
And then that room has sound assist with the loop system for going right into your hearing aids if you want. All the other rooms just have sound assist that's not the loop system. And so basically the whole building's set for remote learning, remote broadcasting to seniors that may not be able to come, or presenting within the room like this, recording.
So going back to those drawings again, we all have access to those drawings?
Yes.
You have the design to go, yes. Did you know, David?
Did you send that to everyone on the committee or just the folks that were reviewing per section?
Just send it to the review people.
Can you send that
I
to
can
everyone?
absolutely send it to you, Nancy. My apologies. Yeah.
Mark, can you call out, I don't know if the specification is worthwhile, but call out the AV drawings and send them to Nancy
Okay,
specifically.
sure.
You
And then
get there pretty quick with what's what,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, thank you.
on the furniture hall, we've done a schedule for each room, and we priced it based on the state contracts that are pre-negotiated in order to establish a budget. So the owner's budget is carrying the furniture. Furniture's not in the construction cost. And we don't really get to the furniture until a little bit later because the furniture changes year to year, and you don't want to order it too soon that you have to pay storage and all that. So that will happen down the road a little bit.
Okay, so there's another report that has some specific information about that you generated.
I know you got that one, that I issued in schematic design early to give a budget for room by room, the furniture schedule. We can send it out again.
Thank you.
Just quickly, Mark, maybe if you could call out the, from the DD set, the AV and the furniture, because those have, the DD set had furniture plans, right, Joel? So you can call those out.
Sure.
And just to reiterate on the furniture, that $500,000 budget there is based on a count of, 18 chairs in this room and tables in this room
Exactly.
with some,
Room by room.
with some contingency on top of that because there'll be escalation based on the state contract. So it's based on actual scope, not just a $500,000 percentage or something.
That's right.
Mark, you
Yeah, two questions. One, staying with the AV just for a second, is in-room amplification part of what's going on also?
Yep.
So like here, you actually have microphone.
You'll have both in each room, and then you have hearing assist as well. Yeah.
Okay, great, because that's a common problem in the town so far.
Yeah.
Second, different question, if I kind of jump up just for a second. In the packet is a bill from Activitas, right? But that's not something we've approved. Can you tell us what that is? It's going to you, Joel.
When the town wanted to do pickleball, they wanted to use Activitas, and it made sense for us to change Activitas into our civil engineering for ReCal so that we could have a unified site. So Activitas joined our team and at the request of the town and is doing the civil engineering and the landscaping. And that's a joint effort between pickleball, and we have it two separate contracts because of the funding. So that's why you saw that invoice come up.
So the 42,792.50 shows us an invoice total. That's all not part of ReCal.
That's all ReCal. That's civil engineering and landscape architecture for ReCal to get to the Conservation Commission and the CPDC. There's a separate invoice for the work at the pickleball, although that doesn't have that much civil because the road ends at ReCal and the wetlands is mostly in ReCal.
So when will this bill come up for our consideration? It sounds like we need to pay, right?
It's, I think it's just the backup that we provided.
So this 42,792.50 is inside of your bill 136?
Yeah.
Broken out into pieces? Is that how? No, okay. So when I see like 16,970 under permitting, task 3, is that a number that was in your bill as well?
Yep.
So is it not broken out?
We're on a lump sum fee and then they asked, for backup because there are certain things that are in that Activitas fee that we weren't sure if you were gonna need or not. We have the wetland consultant pending whether the Concom wanted that service or not. They chose that they didn't want that consultant to do the work, and so that got billed. That's through, those invoices.
So would we, is that part of your DD?
No, that was the additional consultant service, the wetland, because that was, we weren't sure if you were gonna need that or not. So the wetland and the
Wetland
traffic,
15 there.
yeah.
I'm trying to connect, and there's a highlighted number of 16,970 in the Activitas bill.
Yeah.
I'm trying to connect that to something.
That's the Epsilon, wetland.
So the bill that we just approved is
Project
15,000 for wetland.
Yeah, well, it's both. It's just,
If I could request, if there's a way just to, when we have a backup, just to connect it to something. I'm not seeing the connection
Okay.
correctly.
do that. I mean, it's a fixed fee contract, so we usually don't provide the backup. It does get confusing.
So that has been, that's paid. All right, so we're seeing it as backup from the bills we just approved.
So that's a bill to BH plus A, not to the town.
Right.
And has been paid or will be paid out of the 176 plus 21 that we just
Yeah.
voted on.
It's out of the 21, actually. So there's a, it's not
Sort of
both.
the combo.
Both,
The
yeah.
combo, okay. Okay, so it's not, it's backup material, it's not a separate bill for the town. I got it.
That's good.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm assuming when this is all finished, the cost that you're talking about here is going to be on the pickleball invoice, and it's not going to be on a,
No, the wetlands is on both. Because half the wetlands are on pickleball and half the wetlands are on recal.
so whose bill is it? So it goes.
We broke it up. I got two separate fees. And I broke it up and we did the same for all the different, so electrical for the lighting is on pickleball. There's nothing at pickleball that's on the recal contract. It's all separated out.
Okay.
We're gonna touch more on this later. But don't worry, it's all good. Any other questions or comments on the budget? All right, you wanna
Schedule, please. So we left you a little note in the package that we were having a placeholder for the schedule because we were working on getting the contractor's pre-qualification information put in there and some additional changes that we spoke about at the last meeting, and then Joel and I had spoken about it in the interim. So this is the revised updated schedule. We can start right at the line 17. Currently, we're at the PBC meeting now. Line 20, we've added a contractor's pre-qualification section, lines 20 through 28. Line 21 is the establishment of the pre-qualification committee, which will start tonight. You make it a vote at the end of the meeting tonight for establishing the pre-qualification committee. And then we have a series of tasks that need to be done as part of the pre-qualification committee as we go through pre-qualification of the general contractors and the file submitters. We prepare the documents, we advertise, we get the qualifications distributed, we receive their qualifications, we evaluate them, score them, publish the results, and then conduct the pre-qualification meetings. So we've updated that information. We sent out to Pat and to Nancy and a few people this morning a draft of the forms that you use for DCAM, and there's probably Joel on it too, for us to review, or the committee to start to review as early as tomorrow or whenever we can schedule it. there's some information in there about point sections and how much you want to award it, what the dates are going to be, and they should correspond to the dates that are here. So there's a little bit of work to go there. We also provided information. There's services out there, biddocs.com and Project Dog, that can take care of this pre-qualification information for the committee. There's obviously a cost to that. We had a proposal from both companies. We'd like to evaluate those proposals with the committee. I sent that information to, I don't know if Peter had a chance to touch base with you and talk about it. So there's a range of different things, but reviewing information for pre-qualification is a lot of work. And there's a couple of companies out there that will help completely doing things online and getting the information in there for you and sending out for reference checks and putting things in review status, which is a big time savings for the committee. And we'll make a recommendation for what we've seen from the proposals we got of what we think you should use. Because we're starting this now with the committee tonight and jumping into all the tasks that you see here. And we're looking at having a list of pre-qualified general contractors and filed sub-bid trade contractors by the beginning of November. So, and the documents will be done, 100% pretty quickly after that. So I think if we're pre-qualified at that point, that'll help our schedule going forward. So a lot of information, but there are the services out there that can help the process go smoothly and assist everybody that's on the committee, not having to do hundreds of reference checks and stuff when the group can take care of it for you. And then just give you lists of things that you can quickly check through and look to see who's going to be pre-qualified or not. So that's the adjustment that was made pretty much on this schedule. And then the items that we talked about last week, moving the dates for the documents, moving the dates of starting construction, have also been updated here as well. Yes.
So the company that you're hiring to do this preliminary look at the pre-qualification, are they just doing that for the pre-qualification?
For now, it's just for pre-qualification. When we get it into bid, we can certainly do the same thing with similar companies going forward.
And is it the committee or the company that does this, does it report back to the committee?
Absolutely. And everything's online. Everything's online.
Okay, and there's written documentation
Absolutely.
of how and why they made the decisions that they made?
Correct.
Yeah, well, that's an agenda, it's an agenda item towards the end, so we'll get into that. Anything else on schedule?
Nope, that's the update.
Does anyone else have anything on schedule? Anything, Joel and Mark didn't want to alert us to, that we should be anything on over the coming months?
60%'s coming up.
Okay.
End of this month. So it's been moving.
Yeah, quick question. So if you look at the bid and award, what's the process of bids are due, final bids 1:30, construction starts 2:05. What's the process for awarding the bid? Who does that? What's on there?
Yeah, once we get the proposals that come in for the bid amount, it'll be reviewed with the committee and you'll rank them, depending on low bidder, second lowest bidder, most eligible bidder, et cetera. And the decision will be made on the committee level of who to sign a contract with.
So that's PDC meetings right then and there, 1:30.
Yeah, this is slightly different, these dates. Joel, have you seen these?
Well, that's the dates he gave me.
Yeah, we moved it to, I thought after the last meeting, they wanted to move it to February 1, so we did that.
Yeah, there was some, I think Mike had a good comment that we were showing a bid and an award over the holidays that were
Yeah.
pretty aggressive. When the general bids come in, we're gonna have a group of general contractors that are pre-qualified to bid on the job. You're not pre-qualified, you can't bid on the job. they can submit a bid, but we're not gonna accept it. And then we will have, a listing of bidders, and then, they'll all be, in addition to being pre-qualified, they'll all be certified by the Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, DCAM. They'll have a specific project limit. And if their bid is over their single project limit, then their bid is not valid. They also have an aggregate work limit that gets calculated. It's kind of a funky calculation based on how much backlog they have, so they can't have too much work. And they have a file at DCAM that in their application contains information on any legal suit that they've been in, anything to do with the company, workers' comp bond rating, things like that. I think one of the requirements for the OPM is to go visit DCAM, but you don't actually go there anymore, right? Everything's virtual, but review the low bidders, file to see if there's anything new that's popped up since we pre-qualified. They've gone out of business, they're going, who knows, if there's anything like that. And then the OPM, the architect, would make a recommendation to us to award to the lowest responsible and eligible bidder. Eligible, and my mind, if they have a DCAM cert, that's eligible, that's valid, I think they're eligible. And then, there's a question of responsibility. If we found that there were serious changes or things in their organization since we originally pre-qualified them, we could move to the number 2 bidder. But it's unlikely, and, the contractors that were most likely to get through the pre-qualification process, I think all of the project.
And one.
Sure.
The contract's already negotiated, so by the time they submit the bid, you don't have to go, the town just has to sign it, they have to sign it, there's no negotiation at all on terms.
Yeah, the form of contract is in the specification they bid on, but thank you.
Does PVC, meet at that point, or is it kind of, okay? we
We'll-
get it.
We'll meet, and we'll vote, we'll effectively recommend to the town manager that they execute the contract.
Got it.
That's, based on what we think and what the recommendation from our consultants is.
Okay, and the target for that is 135.
Correct.
Got it.
It's the same process for file something.
So the file subbidders, there's certain, trades, mechanical, electrical, masonry, some of the flooring, bidders, they'll bid like 2 or 3 weeks before the general bidder. Their bid has to be based again on a statutory form of contract and the scope that's defined by the documents in the specification for the masonry, let's say. And then the general bidders list which of those bidders they're including. And then the general contractor, when it's awarded, they have to contract with that subcontractor for the amount of their bid. There's no negotiating at that level. Usually represents about half of the trades on the job. Somewhere about 40% of the total cost of the job will typically be the pile subs. So if we got our pile subs and we had a $15 million total of file subs, we'd be panicking. If we had a $5 million, we'd be doing cartwheels. We'll probably be like $8 to $10 million in pile subs, right? Just rough math. That's how it's a Massachusetts only thing. That's how file subs run.
Pat, can I just say, do you guys then put that together essentially? You take all the low file sub bids, the general bid, and put those together so that we can take that, if that's 40%, see what the other is, put it together and see what we got.
There'll be a tabulation of the file sub bids that's published like 2 weeks before the general bid, and the general bidders list their filed sub bids. So when the decision comes to us, the decision is only on the general bidder. And we'll see that for the most part, all the general bidders will carry the same low filed sub bidders, because the filed sub bidders are gonna go through pre-qualification. They all have DCAM certification. For a project this size, they'll all be bonded. They'll only have bonding capacity. So they're viable contractors. It's not fly by night. It's not a fly by night back of the truck electrician or something. It's marriage. You know what I mean? So then we'll just see the general bid, and that's what we'll vote on. Getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Let's get the documents.
I was just curious, how many bids do you expect to receive on a project like this? What's the standard, I don't know, or the average?
Somewhere between 3 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
I mean, we hope for 6.
Uh-huh.
Usually they're about 9, they get pre-qualified and then some drop out.
Anything else on the schedule? Sir? Turn it over to Joel, the design update. The first item we had was the cost estimate review. Do you want to review that or?
He's got it, yep. We did, we had a reconciliation meeting with our cost estimators and the architect's cost estimators last week, on the 27th. Numbers were very, very close. We spent a couple of hours just going through some of the line items that maybe quantities were off or whatever, and consolidated and agreed that the final number you see tonight with PMC is the number that is going to be reflective of the DD set.
Yep.
And the alternates. The alternates were reviewed as well.
It's just. Let me stop sharing and then share again.
Okay. So the left column is where we were at schematic design. The right column is where we're at today. And as Mark mentioned, the right column is a little bit different than it was a month ago, because now we've had one estimate and 2 estimates, and then we had to go through it and make some decisions. The basic construction cost, including the audiovisual, is $21,082,302, which is less than the schematic design estimate. There's a construction contingency that the town's carrying that is that $1,097,000. That's still the same amount today. So the construction contract estimate should come in somewhere, we think, at $22,179,000, which is $856,000 less than what's in the budget and the appropriation. So we're trending a little bit below budget. We also have an additional town contingency, just so that you can see what the total budget is. It's between the under budget amount and the town contingency for change orders and unforeseen conditions, leaves you with 1.913 of extra money in the budget. In the design development budget, there was a conversation about the schedule. So they kept the schedule in the budget for the worst case scenario starting May 1, just because we thought, so there's about $200,000 of escalation built into this budget that we don't think you're going to need, but the cost estimator didn't want to take it out based on the conversations at the meeting last week. And in that design development budget, Range Road goes to the end of the parking lot of Recal. It doesn't extend to pickleball. If it extends to the end of Burbank Arena and connects into the parking lot, there's another $100,000 that would go into the budget. The reason I say it would go into the budget is once a contractor is building the road from Simmons Way to the end of Recal, you don't want to have another guy come in and finish the last 250 feet. So we have to have the same guy do the work, and then we have to figure out how to do the accounting for that, if there is to be an accounting for it. So we have those 2 items carried. If I can go to the next slide.
Joe, can I ask a
Yes.
question? So as you described that 100,000 is budgeted in the pickleball project now.
Well, it's not in the pickleball, it's not in either project right
Not
now.
in either project.
So it would have to come out of one of the contingencies of these projects. So these are just, why is the number different? We, as I mentioned last time, we did more extensive geotechnical. There's a new report and the foundation systems are no longer on piles. They're conventional foundation systems. Save a lot of money. We reduce the escalation amount because we're closer to the start of construction. The design contingency comes down because every time you add more detail on the drawings, that contingency doesn't need to be carried any longer. So that's at 5% today, but in 2 months, that'll come down to 0 when the drawings are done. So those are the key factors that have ended up with this $800,000 nice extra surplus, which gets us to the opportunity to discuss the next slide. In the estimate, they budgeted for 1,000 kilowatt hour solar array, $295,000. So it's $105,000 less now, because we got some feedback at the last meeting and they recalculated it. And Dan is on the line who can explain the return on investment on that. And the geothermal system sort of held close to where it was. It's very expensive because there are 16 closed well loops for this building that go 600 feet deep. And then Dan has some details. There's ground source water, heat pumps, and a lot of other things that go into that. But the wells alone is some $850,000. So I think the analysis proves that that's not really a viable issue, but we sort of would like to get a decision on the photovoltaic, and I'd like to get a decision on the road extension. I don't mind making the road extension and add alternate to the bid, but we need to tell the civil engineer, should he do it or not do it for the engineering. So, and from permitting and Conservation Commission and the site plan review, that extension has been brought to the table. So that would be approved when we get our final approval. So we don't have any permitting issues if we go ahead with that road extension.
Do you want to keep going, or do you want us to talk about those two items right now? Might take a little bit.
We can, well, the PV, if you'd ask for a cost analysis, so Dan has that if you want to hear that piece.
Yep.
Dan, can you?
Yep. Can I have the next slide? Thank you. So we did this with our energy modeler, Edelman Lilac, for scenario number 1, which is a 100 kilowatt solar PV system, and this is on the gym roof that you'll see in the plan. And the alternate from the cost was $295,000. And the life cycle cost escalating over 20 years is actually $312,000. And you'll see the analysis, the summary of the analysis shortly. We also conducted the same to the geothermal system. The incremental cost was 1.24 million, and the life cycle cost over 20 years is actually 1.4 million, meaning what this means is there's no payback. It's actually more expensive. And again, I'll explain that. We ran a scenario number 3, which is putting in that same geothermal system, assuming a 30% federal grant. This one is, we did this because the federal grant 30% is not sort of a certainty, but one thing to explain on this particular 30% federal grant is that it's not just on the geothermal system, but but it's actually all systems supporting and associated with the geothermal system. So in this case, all the VRF mechanical air source heat pumps or the heat pump system and distribution can be included into this federal grant. And this is why the incremental cost of putting in a geothermal system with the 30% federal grant is only $295,000. And escalating that to the life cycle cost over 20 years is $124,000. If I can get to the next slide, I think it will make it clear a little bit. So these are the energy summary. The building model as currently drawn in the DD set costs about 230,000 kilowatt hour, which translates to around $40,000, 39,216 per year. With a solar system, it was a 100-watt solar system. It puts out 94,000 kilowatts hour, and that reduces the energy cost of the building to roughly $23,000 per year. And was the incremental cost of the $295,000. With a geothermal system, the energy cost is at around $35,000 out of the 39, meaning there's really only roughly $4,000 of energy savings with a geothermal system. And then of course there's the geothermal with the incentives below. And we modeled this, the energy model modeled this based on the 72 hours building use. And this was coordinated with the town in terms of the estimated hours that this facility will be open. And then I also wanted to touch on the life cycle cost analysis. We made some assumptions with the energy model that these can be tweaked to meet to test different scenarios. We assumed the 7% interest over 20 years, which assuming that the entire amount, whether it's solar PV or the geothermal, is borrowed. We escalated 1.5% of annual electric rate increase over 20 years. And this is a constant 1.5%. There is a DOE data set and actually closely corresponds to a roughly 1.5% of annual electric rate increase. And that was put into the life cycle analysis as well. Relative to the geothermal system, at the end of 20 years, we believe that there's roughly a $400,000 residual value. And this is primarily because the geothermal, the wells, as Joe pointed out, that cost roughly $800,000, can last well past 20 years. Its average life is 50 plus years or so. And this is why the residual value, we took 50% of that cost, the $800,000, and plugged in $400,000 for residual cost value for the geothermal system. The residual value for the PV panels, however, came out as a wash in that the residual value was actually offset by the replacement value of the inverters, for example, only lasts around 20 years. Although the PV panels can last longer, but the replacement value sort of was a wash. So we did not take that or put that into consideration in the LCCA assumptions. And then the next two slides just kind of digs in a little bit into the PV. First one is the PV cells. With a system that has no PV, which is our basis system, the annual electricity cost was $39,000, and then a 20-year life cycle cost, assuming that there's no PV system, with the energy cost is $674,000. With a PV system, the installation initial cost was $295,000. We had assumed annual maintenance costs around $3,000 for 20 years. That $3,000 is really about cleaning the PV panels and maintenance. And when escalated with the energy cost savings on 20 years life cycle cost, that actual cost, including the 7% borrowing interest rate, escalates to around $987,000. So you can see that at the end of 20 years, there's actually a $312,000 negative, meaning that you're not saving money, but there are additional costs, or there's more costs to that. And this is partly is because of the annual interest rate at 7% borrowing for 20 years. And that cost itself was roughly around $650,000. Borrowing $295,000 was around $250,000. In the next slide, last slide here, what we have is the geothermal. And in the geothermal, again, we compared it to option one, which is essentially the base building with the air source heat pump. The installation cost per the DD estimate is $1.9 million. We assumed a $5,000 annual maintenance cost with the energy modeler. Escalating out to 20 years, that life cycle is 3.4 million. With the geothermal heat pump system, we included the annual electricity cost, which is around a $4,000 savings. The installation cost is the 1.2 million premium that you saw in alternate 2, plus the install cost of the VRF, because they work together. The annual maintenance cost there is roughly the same. And then escalating out 20 years, there's a negative 1.4 million savings, or in this case, not savings from utilizing a geothermal system. And finally, with the 30% federal rebate, everything sort of stays the same. However, the initial cost of the geothermal system actually comes down. It's 2.2 million minus 1.9 million. So in effect, it's only around $260,000 if assuming the geothermal, sorry, $290,000 assuming the geothermal, or sorry, assuming the 30% federal grant. So
Just on that point, so that's a rebate. So the town would have to pay for the system and then you would get paid back. And the only thing that's a little risky is all those guys that built the windmills off of Rhode Island, they're 80% done and now that's rescinded. You know, if these rebates disappear, then that's 75% of our contingency is tied up into the thermal.
On that point specifically, I fully agree that from a financing perspective, we have to bridge between paying for it up front and getting paid back. But in terms of the confidence in the existence of this incentive, the geothermal incentive is basically the only Inflation Reduction Act policy that survived the BBB. So in my opinion, I think that there's two things here. One, we need to solve the confidence in the town's ability to bridge that, time of financing, and B, have confidence that the town can engage the correct people to implement this tax incentive, which may not be trivial. In fact, the regulations start at a 30% tax credit and potentially go up to 40 or 50%, depending on certain things like whether the equipment's made in the US and whether we meet prevailing wage. So in my opinion, this should be a go if we can secure the expertise to validate it, and potentially even, if it's 40%, it'll be a first cost savings. But if we don't think we can get that expertise engaged properly, then it's a risk, not because we don't think that this is true, but because we don't think that we can kind of get it done on time for the project. That's my 2 cents. Yeah.
And Ari, is it correct that expertise is like a tax specialist?
Yeah, so there are tax specialists that specialize in the energy efficiency tax credits. They're all, I don't know how the town, because we're obviously not a taxed entity, right? So it's difficult, but normally people would just get their CPA to handle this, right? Whatever firm does their taxes would do this, but there are specialty firms that will basically process this rebate and make sure we're doing it right. And I can, I'm happy to provide references of that, if useful. But I mean, I'm assuming someone at the town level needs to be involved, right? Whoever handles that kind of complicated financial stuff.
Yeah, the town is preparing to engage a tax consultant, for lack of a better term, for Killam.
Yeah.
Because Killam has geothermal. Can you back up? I have a question. If you back up a couple slides. Something I struggle with and I definitely would like to be educated. Right there, that one, go back one. So when I look at the cost savings from the base building to the geothermal, we're saving $4,000, and that's an annual, the energy savings.
That's correct.
That's an annual. So it's only so we're putting all this geothermal in the ground, bodied carbon. We're doing a bunch of stuff to get it in the ground. And we're only saving, and it's electric both ways. So it's not like we're changing from a natural gas or an oil to electric. So just forgetting about the numbers for a minute, talking about the environmental impact. Am I missing something that you put all this geothermal in and you really have no significant impact on carbon emissions? I mean, it's $4,000, so I guess it's a 10% reduction.
Pat, I agree with you. I think the message from this analysis is that this is a first cost issue. This is worth doing if it saves first costs, and it's not worth the juice isn't worth the squeeze if it doesn't save first costs. And that's why I mentioned that 30 versus 40 versus 50%. If we can get a tax professional to validate that, would be a big deal. But otherwise, especially given the timeline of the project, it doesn't seem like this is the right. Again, I'm going back to what we had talked about months ago, that this wasn't necessarily the right project for geothermal, not because it's not a good technology, but just because it clearly doesn't make a huge difference energy wise. But what's happened since then is that all the uncertainty about whether the Inflation Reduction Act policies relative to geothermal would survive the Trump administration is now defined, right? Like there's an answer on that, and we can actually move forward saying that we can do this or not, but only with somebody more qualified, certainly more qualified than me in the room.
Isn't there an advantage to the fact that the wells last for 50+ years? So you're not changing out equipment after 20 years of remaining. There's got to be some advantage.
Yeah, that isn't it.
Still less.
Material, the other pumps still have to be replaced. Okay, gotcha.
When we reviewed this at Killam, one of the interesting things was anecdotally, everyone said the geothermal was less maintenance because there's fewer moving parts. But when they actually pulled out numbers from certain industries, I don't know if it was, like ASTM or whoever, association of facility managers, the numbers actually showed that the geothermal wasn't maintenance savings. It was even money or even a little more expensive. And I think the reason for that, I would surmise, is because it breaks infrequently. But when it breaks, like if you have a problem with a well and with that piping, it's under your parking lot. It's not a good scene. And it's a closed loop glycol system. So if you break a line, it's leaking glycol, which is antifreeze. It's just a mark.
I'm wondering why you chose 7% as the interest rate, and more importantly, what would happen if you dropped it to 4.5 or 5? Because I don't think we anticipate it's going to cost us 7%.
Going back to town meeting, Sharon was projecting 5.
Yeah.
So that would be a better
Can you
number.
actually update that somewhat live, Dan?
I don't have the energy model. I have to go to the energy model. But what I can tell you is we actually, for the PV, I tested it myself by eliminating the interest, and we were still negative on the geothermal. And so
So that's not what's driving it. The interest rate's not-
that's correct, but I do have one that was at 4.5%. I did ask an energy modeler to use the 4.5%, but the life cycle cost escalated over 20 years was not as significant. I'm happy to share them in a report separate.
I had the same comment. I asked them to do it lower and they said, well, it's risky because where interest rates are relatively low still, even though they're higher. There was a time when we were paying 8-9%.
Yeah, but not now.
Yeah. But who knows for the next 20 years that you have to, unless your mortgage rate would be fixed, your bond rate would be fixed.
Several times, it never shows that geothermal big winner.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we would even be considering it continually, again and again and again. The track record is it's okay, but it's not going to save us. Then it's not environmentally better than the source.
Right.
So I'm not sure what the incentive would be to go to geothermal. It's risky and it doesn't save us money.
Right. The reason the analysis was done is so many people asked for it. We wanted to have the answers.
Yeah, right.
And
Can you bounce to the last slide? Struggling with these, what exactly these numbers mean with the negatives. So Dan, can you explain on the geothermal with the federal grant, what exactly does the 124,000 mean?
It means that after 20 years, at 20 years with the geothermal heat pump system with the 30% federal grant, you start with $295,000 of premium to install a geothermal system. And however, escalating 20 years later, you are still at a negative $124,000. And this is taking into account, again, borrowing the money, escalating electricity costs over 20 years, and a residual value of those ground wells at 400,000. These are sort of educated guesses, but reasonable. And so but another way to put it is if you escalate this out to 30 years or 40 years, you may break even. For example, that ground loop is 50 years or more, in at least for the basic assumption. The pumps will need to be replaced 20 years, for example, and that's taken into account in the life cycle analysis.
I think so. Ari, your point is if this is all based on a 30%, if we got to 40 or 50%, then it would actually be a positive.
That's correct. At 40%, for example, the $250,000 might become $30,000, meaning you actually get federal rebates back for that. And I think that's Ari's point. That initial cost, whatever that percentage, there is a break-even percentage number. So
that is exactly my point. That's what I'm saying. This is really, I agree with what everyone's saying. It doesn't save a significant amount of energy or operational carbon compared to the air source. It is, there's some good truth to the residual value and the fact that it will last longer. A big piece of the system will last longer. But at the end of the day, right, if our job is to deliver a project on budget, then the biggest deal here is does this cost money or does this save us money? And that should be the decision criteria. On first cost, construction costs.
Yeah.
Can we jump back just to PV for a second? What's driving the failure of PV? Is that at the end of 20 years they have to be replaced?
the inverters will need to be replaced after 20 years. The the panels themselves are actually fairly efficient still after 20 years. We could go into more details, which I'm not getting into. For example, the PV cells themselves at 100 kilowatt, over 20 years probably only degrades by around 10% to 11%, meaning that it can still put out 80 kWh or 80 kilowatt system. However, the inverters themselves and the lines will need to be replaced after 20 years. The actual salvage value, meaning the residual value, it technically is negative. It costs money to take the system down and dispose of them. It actually is quite costly for a 100 kilowatt system.
And was there a discussion with RMLD just to let them know that these things are under consideration, to see if they have any programs they're considering participating in for their communities?
The only conversation we have with RMLD, one was establishing the 0.17, the 17 cents rate that you would have that they anticipate for recal. The other was the rebate. We were told, I think Joe shared with you that it was not, they were not certain that the program would continue. And this is conversation with Ryan and Megan at our RMLD. But there may be additional conversation outside of it, I'm sure. I mean, they are, I have talked to them, and just seems that there's a lot of uncertainty on that side at the moment.
They have an interim leader right now, quite a lot of additional services.
Also, just the lease costs, right, just little money are pretty darn good.
Yeah.
The rates are pretty
Trying to
amazing.
Compare that off to, we were in a different community.
This works a lot better in Newton.
Yeah,
Right.
right, exactly.
Yeah, our rate is basically half what other towns, what people pay on Eversource. It's,
But the only argument I have on that is the carbon footprint of the kilowatt hour is the same no matter what you pay for it. So
Right.
if you're saving a third or a quarter of your energy use, that's not insignificant in terms of carbon reduction now. And my perception was from all the public outreach is that I think people expected that there would be solar on this building.
They didn't expect.
So Joel, can you talk to us a little bit about, I know the answer is you need an answer now. But a little bit about timing and, what it looks like if we make a certain decision and change our minds. It seems to me that like PV, correct me if I'm wrong, we've designed PV ready. Would we put in conduit so we could get to the roof and get what we need? So you could add, as many municipalities do, when a job's halfway done, we won't do that, but you could add it later.
Yeah.
Geothermal, less so. Maybe you can just, and where you are in the design, what you need to tell your consultants.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't, it's a little bit more complicated. You'd think with solar panels, you just show them on the drawings and they go in, but it's quite a bit of engineering that goes in. The infrastructure is just conduits that allow the wiring to connect from the roof to the house panel. I think the idea was we could add it on now, or you could add it on in 2 years if you wanted to. That works.
And typically with a solar ready building, you'll have the panels, the conduit, the infrastructure is there for you to add something later. And if it's not only the town doing it, a power purchase agreement, you can work with someone else to lease the panels to put them on your roof, and they get the energy savings, you get the energy savings, they get the tax credits. So there's multiple vehicles to add something later, but the infrastructure should be there.
That's what we talked about last week, right?
Does-
It has to be.
Because that was low money.
Yeah.
PV ready was low money.
That's it.
And it's good, publicity and saying, well, we're not going to put it on now, but it's ready to put it on when the time is right.
Ari, did you have something you wanted to?
yeah, sorry, that, I meant to ask, does the life cycle cost analysis assume, what does it assume about whether the town would retain or versus sell the RECs the renewable energy credits from the panels or from the production?
They have not, but so the assumption is that the town or retail building will use up all the solar panel power that is being produced for own building use, meaning that if there's not they did not put into the energy or put into that model sort of the energy flowing back to the grid, for example, if there's excess energy. The reasoning is that RMLD the energy that's flowing back on the grid is a different rate than what the energy that's being provided, and the rate going back is lower than what is being provided. And so we can input that assumption more, and we did tweak that a little bit with the energy modeler, but it didn't seem to make that big of an impact on the final number cost.
I guess the question isn't necessarily about like net metering or selling off any excess electricity. It's more, so in Massachusetts, you can generate, it's a source of revenue to generate power, even if you're using it in your building through I don't know if nobody needs a lecture on this, but there's things called renewable energy certificates or RECs that produce value, right? You can sell them. There's a market for them. So they generate potential income, which helps which is why when someone comes to your house to sell you the solar, that's how they're able to generate good ROIs, is because there's value to producing in Massachusetts. The flip side of that is that if you sell the renewable energy certificate for your solar, what you're actually selling is basically the environmental attribute, right? You're selling the fact that it's green power, and you can no longer fairly claim that you sort of have solar panels, if that makes sense, right? Because somebody else is buying that renewable energy credit so they can claim that they have renewable energy. So you're double dipping if there's a financial incentive to sell them, but a potential. So the idea is that if you basically, it's called retiring them, you generate them and then bury them in a hole in the ground, then you get to say, hey, I produced solar, I have zero carbon electricity for this stuff, but you don't get to sell the credit. So long story short, it'd be helpful to know, it'll push that payback for the solar one way or another, to know whether there was an assumption about selling those RECs.
So what would the assumption be though? Because that's another assumption we need to put into the model.
If we were to go out to like a solar vendor to do this, right, to throw these on the building after the fact, for example, they would probably package that and decide whether the costs that they were offering included whether they were giving you the control of the RECs. Typically, if you buy the panels outright, right, if you just pay retail for the panels, instead of doing something like a power purchase agreement, you get those RECs and you can decide to sell them. That, like, to give an example of that, right, that RMLD does that. RMLD generates solar panels, generates some electricity. They own a couple of solar farms and they sell that generation. They sell the renewable energy certificates and generate income for the utility by doing that. So I would assume we would sell them, long story short, and then they're valuable.
So it kind of sounds like it'd be great to get RMLD a little bit more involved before we kind of put nails into this. Although being solar ready sounds like the no-brainer. Yeah,
Right.
is 100 kWh the max capacity? That's the physical space max. And is it dollar for dollar? If we've been up to 200, is it just?
We could put more on the building, that covers the gym.
Got it.
And it made sense to put it all in one place.
Yeah, so that's the max for the gym. Okay.
It seemed to me the maximum that made sense, yeah.
Is that the best orientation too?
And
Right.
we were trying to get it in a budget that was affordable.
If you go to the roof plan on the drawing, which is a
Yeah.
couple slides before, you'll see the solar panels. We calculated out the area and also the panel sizes. There's 208 panels here, 104 on each side, 4,320 square feet. of solar panels. And this conforms with the fire department requirements in terms of roof access, leading edges and so on. This is why these numbers are different bit than what was initially presented last time.
So this is a pitched roof.
This is a pitch roof, that's correct.
Through the roofing, which is potentially, that roof is laid down, basically.
You can balance it, yeah.
Whereas this has to be, this is penetrance.
Yeah.
And it does a job with the roofing. And after 20 years, you can replace the roofing, and you're going to replace the panels at the same time, because you have to take them off to replace the roofing. And those are other negatives, you know.
If you can, yeah. No, I was, I didn't do the kitchen and I noticed the kitchen was on here if anybody wants to see that.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
moving on. So,
That's the next item.
Yeah, so,
I just,
That's item D.
our slides got a little mixed up.
I mean, understanding, Joel, that we always reserve the right, and Bill Parcells' famous line, reserve the right to change our minds. I think, you know, does anyone have a strong feeling, just starting to, the geothermal? The geothermal feels to me like we'd be spending $1 million of our budget now and maybe getting $1 million later. And it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of carbon offset happening either.
Was there a level of sustainability expected for this project as far as the count goes? The vote, did they say, you know, energy efficient, sustainable, geothermal, solar? That may have swayed people to vote it that way. Now, if you don't do it,
I would say, speaking for the presentations we made to town meeting, there was no commitment of solar or geothermal associated with this building. I think there was a maybe, you know, a general understanding that we're following, you know, best design practices for sustainable design, which is these days, a lot of which is simply inherent in the products we buy. Any steel that goes into this building is gonna be 90-something% recycled material. Just is the way the industry works now. But I don't know if someone else wants to chime in on what we think the commitments were to the community as far as sustainable design.
From an energy perspective, I think, and carbon perspective, I think the fact that it's an all electric building is really the key thing to promote. I think that there's a lot of misinformation about assuming that geothermal is the best way to go. I think we're kind of proving that. So I would sleep happily at night being able to say we designed an all electric building. It can be powered with renewable energy in the future. There's really not much more you can do, right? You got to the end. It's a matter of it's means and methods at that point. So I think we're meeting all those key criteria. To be
I
honest,
think everything you just said was how it was presented to the town.
I think that there was discussion, particularly early on, I would call it desire, and somewhat expectation that we would do kind of best practices.
Mhm.
And I thought perhaps that was gonna be solar.
Mhm.
But there was certainly no commitment made that it will have it or else it won't be built. There's no commitment like that made it.
Yeah, I agree.
or to be added later.
Yeah, I think there's an expectation that we're doing what we're doing and seeing if there's a way to do it. And I think it would be a bonus to do it, frankly, if it wasn't just a cost.
So, what would it look like if we base bid was the building was solar ready and then we had an alternate, we considered an alternate for solar? And we could see what that hard 295 number is. It'll be a number, because the 295 is gonna be something different than 295. Might be a little more, might be a little less, but it's not gonna be exactly 295, but we would then have that number. And in the meantime, we can look at those recs that Ari mentioned, which I have solar panels on a house, and I would just like once a quarter, I'd just get $150 like deposited in my account, which apparently now I know I can't brag about being Having solar, thank you, Ari.
Well, that's, yeah, sorry. Everyone still does. You can still brag.
Yeah.
I think it would be very valuable to somehow bring RMLD in a little bit closer to the conversation, perhaps through the commissioners.
Yeah.
I would be happy to, I'll get that started if that's okay with the.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love for you to take on that task. But if, I don't know, I don't know if we need a vote or not, or if we should have a vote, and I'm just putting something on the table that maybe the direction for Joel and the design team is no to geothermal, solar ready with an alternate for solar panels as the move forward and we investigate further. If that's good enough for you to proceed, then we can move on.
One question though,
Shoot.
right now there are only two alternates that we're considering. The road and the solar.
Yep.
Everything else is working out. So we're gonna have to decide if we wanna put the road in as an alternate or not. And then we're gonna have to rank them because you have to rank them and select them in a way that you rank it for some reason.
Yeah. So if everyone's good with that and we're still on design, do you want to move to talking a little bit about the road?
Then we can go to the first slide. The road goes from the left of the pickleball to the right of the pickleball. And then it cuts in right there where the pointer is to a gate that's on the existing Burbank Arena. There's actually a emergency egress path there that we would just be paving. And that would be an alternate. We're also going to put one handicap accessible space in this corner that can be used by various folks to just make that space a little bit bigger for the planning board. As to that, in Burbank Arena parking lot, if the agreement went through, our suggestion was to also pave 2 or 3 parking spaces. That's a gravel lot. Make sure that there was 1 or 2 or 3 handicap spaces in the Burbank lot for pickleball and whatever. If you go to the next slide, this is just showing the extent of that lot. That's a big parking lot behind 226 cars.
Yeah.
83 in the front, 13 on the side. So there's a total of 322 spaces there. The agreement hasn't been worked out, but I think that's our approach is to try to use that for pickleball. And what the widening of the road would do is if you go down a couple more slides, one more, that one with the car. If the worst case, this is Range Road and there's a van coming behind my back when I took this. You can pass a van and a car on Range Road today. It's not like it's a 1-lane road. So worst case, you'd have that and we would go into Burbank Arena. So there'd still be a way to get into Burbank this way. You could also switch off at Simmons Road and go in there. So it's not as if we don't do the road, you don't have anything, but you can see the road's not in the best shape and something would have to be done in the near future.
Yeah.
Does everybody understand why this is coming up? I don't know if people saw the CPTC hearing at all. The CPTC hearing last week. We're five parking places short for recount, but is that what they're saying, or is it 5 count for everything?
There's 5 for recal based on, not on the bylaws, but based on a request. So that problem with that is you can't get a variance if there's not something in the bylaws, you know. So.
It's frustrating. It's extremely
But
frustrating.
and there's a lot of things that go into that. We lost 4 spaces because if you go back to that part, there's islands in the parking lot and that took up 4 of our spaces. The reason the islands are there is that Conservation Commission didn't want any bleed of the parking lot lighting beyond the parking lot. So it was very hard to light that parking lot from the edge and not have any light go into the wetland buffer zone. That's their area of jurisdiction. So to solve the problem, we put the islands in, the lighting for the parking lots in those green islands. And thank you.
Oh, that's Dan doing
Oh,
that.
Dan doing
I don't know how,
that.
but thanks, Dan.
Dan's the man.
And that solves the Conservation Commission. So that brought us down 4 spaces.
So conservation is happier and CBDC is less happy.
Right, but the traffic consultant initial report was 85 spaces would be more than enough for this. And that was corroborated by Sandwich that has pickleball and Cal and other projects, so. I think we're gonna have to go back on Monday or Tuesday of next week for the next hearing, and hopefully we have a better explanation than we had the first night.
I have a question. Activitas, their and your current design fees for Recal and pickleball, do they include the design of that Range Road extension?
They include,
The design of that Range Road extension?
that's in the cost, yeah.
So you are under contract to design?
Yeah, it wouldn't be an extra.
Yeah, and it's not the lion's share. of
They've
the cost.
already designed it pretty much to get it permitted,
Okay,
so,
so, pickleball is probably gonna be built before Recal. But I don't see a scenario where you would build pickleball and build that section of road. You would never do that and then build Recal after, you do it all together. So it seems to me the only answer is if that Range Road extension is gonna be built, would be to build it under the Recal contract. The question becomes a little bit of who pays for it. Recal wants to push back on the town, it's the town pushing back on the town. But there are different buckets and there are, getting back to what was presented to the town. I don't think we presented that as a Recal cost, but it seems to lead to me that should be designed and put on the Recal documents and probably done as an alternate, if for no other reason than to very definitively segregate the costs. And if between now and the time we go out to bid, we reserve the right to change our mind type of deal, like changing that out of an alternate probably isn't a big harm to
it's
you.
easy.
Yeah. So it seems to me the obvious direction for you with that road is to include it in these documents. I don't know if, I think Matt's on the line. If Matt has any thoughts on that, town manager.
Yeah, I've been listening and I do agree. Some of these things will flesh out as time goes by as well, but I do agree with what was said so far, yes.
Yeah, would we also then entertain this notion of paving a few spots back of the arena as part of that extension? I assume that would be the same contractor, same everything again.
Yeah, we'll figure that out, whether that, we have done it with paving, we have done it with the pressed macadam, which looks like the rest of the parking lot, but it's handicap accessible.
Yep.
And that would be a little bit more complicated, so, because that would have to be an agreement with Burbank on their lot, so that might take a little more time to work out. But
It may also satisfy CPDC.
Yep.
In doing it too,
Yep.
so,
we'll,
yeah, but it has to be part of an agreement, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But for the
but
purpose
we
of
can
cost,
design it in.
Yeah,
And
exactly,
then-
put in for the cost and then see what happens. I assume that's de minimis though, comparison, right?
Okay, so, does anyone have any further thoughts on that? Disagreement? I'm open to someone disagreeing with me. I'm open to moving forward too.
If I could say.
Nancy?
I get worried about this. I definitely agree that it should be an alternate. I'd like to see what the cost is of that. I think when it comes down to paying it, ReCal has to be very careful that we're not using money that wasn't sort of disclosed at the beginning of the project. It's always been pickleball is separate from ReCal. So we really gotta be open in how that gets paid for ultimately, and maybe it is on the budget because it's been such a good bid package. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want people to come back and say, ReCal did this without letting anybody know. And that I don't want to have that. I just want it to be all about it. And maybe it's a conversation at town meeting in November.
Yeah.
That says this has come up and this is what the town wants to do and let people know. I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem. I just want to make sure it's public. That's really right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think
I
holding it out as
agree
an
with that
alternate,
too.
Yeah.
holding it out as an alternate helps show that.
Yeah, I
too.
think so too.
Yeah,
Is, who all is in negotiation with Burbank? Is that formal set of discussions going on?
Yep, there are some discussions going on right now.
Yeah.
The agreement will not be ready for Monday, prime time. But discussions are happening and we hope to finalize it within the next couple months or so. So hopefully CPDC will just good faith condition it to say, hey, we'll approve this based on a contract with Burbank. But it seems like they are going to be signing something. Matt, any feedback on that?
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it takes time and we have to have town council involved. I was talking to her today. They will have their council involved. So we're making progress. We've met with some members of their board. Drafts have been exchanged, but it does take a little time. So, and select board would most likely have to approve it as well. So it's a process. So for CPDC, we'll certainly have a good update prepared for them. And take it from there. But we all tuned into the last meeting and we know the issues. So, but it's certainly a priority.
Is there in fact a back entrance into the arena? Back at those spots we're talking about?
There's an entrance today.
There is. Yeah, so it's-
Yeah, there's a gate there, I believe. Yeah, there's a gate, but yeah.
but sorry, no, I get into the parking lot. How about into the building?
Oh, you have to walk all the way to the front corner.
Okay, so that.
Doesn't help. They have handicap spaces at the front of their building.
Okay,
Yeah.
too bad.
Nancy?
so in terms of whether what this agreement is going to say, it's ultimately a decision of CBDC. Yeah. Who makes the final decision? The town, the committee, this group? Who makes the final decision on that?
I would think that the agreement that we're talking about with Burbank would fall under the operation, which would fall under town staff, under Matt. Town staff.
Yeah, that's it. Wouldn't be CPDC. We take the input from CPDC, but they don't have the final say over the agreement. Like I said, I'm talking to town council, most likely bring it to the select board as well for a vote. So.
I think we provide input, but
Yeah.
it's not our agreement to
Right.
to
I-
negotiate and finalize.
Yeah, that I think is important to know because we want to make sure in that decision, whatever that agreement comes out to, is that it is an accurate reflection of the use of the current Burbank parking. I mean, I'm hearing all kinds of stories now about what it's like in the winter there. You cannot find parking spaces. So one of the things that I'm concerned about is, not that, there's additional parking, but is that number of spaces you know, are we gonna have hockey families coming over and parking in the, retail lot? And I know that's also gonna be part of the decision, but I think it's really important that the town share the drafts and what the current, plan is for that with the appropriate, stakeholders. Anyways, that's just, I'm concerned about it.
I think,
But I know
I think
it's-
there's gonna be adequate parking on that, in that, complex.
410 spaces.
Yeah,
A lot of parking.
I think there's gonna be, but,
we'll see.
Except when they have tournaments.
yeah,
Yeah,
Because there's overflow that goes to St. Athanasius.
yes.
Yeah. so I'm sure Matt, Jane and Jenna will share. with
Yeah,
you.
we'll keep that. Certainly, it's a good point, Nancy, and we'll certainly keep all that in mind and be as transparent as possible with that information. Sure.
Thank you.
So I think we've covered everything, Joel, on your design update. I don't know if you want to talk about the kitchen at all, throw the kitchen plan up there, or you snuck it in already.
I mean,
Good.
I don't know, but that's kind of the PVC. But I think we got a resolution on the kitchen.
Okay, excellent. The,
I agree.
excellent, excellent.
Good job, Jill.
All right, thank you.
Moving back to the agenda, other updates, the operational plan. Jenna, did you want to give an update, or are we gonna do an update from some other boards? Nancy?
Yeah, I think Joel just gave a good synopsis of conservation and CPDC. Is there anything else you wanted to add with conservation, really?
Well, there's another hearing next week.
Great.
Yep, we're
Yeah, it's
nearing the end on that one.
Monday night during Killam's.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Meeting, yeah, so that's a little
At the
bit
same time
tricky.
as well?
Same time, 7:15.
Fantastic, good.
And then for the operational plan, the volunteers and the staff gave a presentation to the Council on Aging, just an introduction to the operations plan. We can share that PowerPoint with the committee so you all can see it if you haven't already seen it. And we plan to present that same presentation to the Recreation Committee. And then in October, the plan is to bring draft policies, existing and new, to the committees, the Recreation and the Council on Aging. And we'll even try to get a lot of those documents to them in September so they can start reviewing them in advance of the meeting. So there's several, probably have like 14 or 15 different existing and new policies that we'll be going over in the next couple months. And that's it for now. Ian, did you have anything else to add? On that? No.
Excellent, thank you.
No, and actually, I just want, I thank the town for their timeliness in getting a plan up there to include the personnel process.
Was there any inclusion of men's programs in the? I heard reports that they.
Yeah.
About the men's programs. Anybody thinking about?
Yeah, so we do have a draft programming schedule that's on the docket for the November presentation to the Council on Aging and the Recreation Committee. So at that time, you'll be able to see all the programs that are proposed. We're not like specifically categorizing them as men and women's programming, but we have a lot of things that we think are more appealing to the male population, I guess you could say, like woodworking. Yeah, like a woodworking class we have on the schedule. A lot of engineering classes. Again, I know a lot of women who are very handy. And billiards is a big one too. They have tournaments in several different towns. And then it's an open conversation, right? So I encourage anyone who wants a program to be seen at the new center to come forward. And then in the spring, if you look at the timeline of the operational plan, we're going to present it to the community for input. And then we'll start bringing out surveys to folks in the community and saying, hey, here's what's gonna be there, but what would you like to see? Newton has a really great, survey that they put out to their community to find some, new programming ideas that people would like to see. And we'll be working with all the different committees and the community throughout the next couple of years to develop that.
Sometimes programs will influence the design of the building, such as a woodworking shop.
Sure.
You need dust collection and loss and stuff. So you can't just design the building and then.
Well, North Andover doesn't have a specific woodworking room, but they have a woodworking class. So I don't know how they get around it, but a different type of woodworking. Oh, carving.
Peabody has a woodworking shop,
Yeah,
which was very, very popular when we were there.
Yeah.
Everybody went there, said, great. But, you know, it requires.
yeah. So we won't have a full,
Dust collection.
yeah, we won't have a full working shop, but we can have a program that's similar. Not that in depth, but I'm sure wood carving or engineering in the maker space or the arts and crafts room would be completely feasible. Joel, do you have any feedback on that? As far as like the design of like woodworking and you could do it in the arts and crafts room,
You
right?
could, I mean, it's, if you get into real equipment, it gets more complicated.
Right.
My 2 cents.
Sure.
I think that woodworking shop is fantastic, but it wasn't part of the original. Scope isn't the right word, but of this project. I mean, that takes an entire room. And right now the square feet are, so it might be a future item.
Yeah, we'll take some, take flooring,
Yes, yeah.
dust construction.
Get back to your comment about the operation does influence the design. I think that input and influence was given to Joel during schematic. That was handled by the town. And it's where it is today. I think sounds like there's opportunity for that, some of that stuff in the bigger space. But a full blown woodworking shop is not, we gotta move forward. You gotta move forward. All right. Anything else on the operational plan? Thank you, Jen. That was great. Financial update, just wanna cover quickly. We had a bunch of questions on the invoices. And one of the things we've talked about is putting together like call it a finance subcommittee or working group. That would, and the expectation would be, whether it's the H+A's contract, TTH, the general contractor that we have, or any other vendors that we deal with, any contracts, amendments to contracts or invoices, as they come to the PBC, the expectation would be, the ask would be that for that stuff to come to us a week ahead of time. And we would have a subcommittee that would, or a working group that might meet periodically, but would be charged with vetting that stuff, which would, doesn't totally eliminate some of the questioning that we have on an invoice, sort of that you had earlier tonight. We have a set group that would review that stuff, and we'd start off, that subcommittee would give a recommendation that they're in favor of this amendment or whatever it is. I think that's a worthwhile thing to do. And unless there's anyone in the room or not in the room that wants to volunteer, I think Kirk would be great. Mike Nazaro, I think Sharon from the town side needs to be on that committee. And then probably either Kevin or Joe to weigh in. And this would be, a working group that survives through the life of construction. If anyone has any thoughts on that, anyone wants to volunteer, offer to change up the people I just mentioned. We will also have we need to establish a pre-qualification committee, and we're gonna need 3 town staff / PBC members on that committee. as well. And I think Joe and or Kevin will be on that committee as well. So I don't know if you have any thoughts, Joe, maybe you and Kevin can split those duties.
Yep, that sounds good.
Do you want to volunteer Kevin for one or the other?
Both. I think we can split it between the two of us. Whatever you think place would be. I think the evaluation, the committee for me would be good.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that committee would be made up of Kirk, Mike, Kevin, and Sharon. And they would set up a time and a way to review, all that stuff ahead of the meeting. Yeah, you guys would obviously be, Mark, representatives of TTH and BH+A would be part of that. And you may or may not be at the meeting, but it would allow some back and forth, some questioning before we come to the meeting. I think it just will help things go a little bit smoother. Oh. We need a vote for that.
For the prequel.
We probably just need a vote for the pre-qual committee. Okay. So moving to the next item, unless anyone has any commentary on the finance committee, something called a working group. Design review. So just to reiterate, I was gonna review the specs, Nancy, architectural drawings, John, structural drawings, Ari, the mechanicals, and Mike Mazzaro, the civil drawings. There was a little bit of a fumble, and I'll take the hit on that. The documents that we're reviewing, we probably could have, to Ari's point, last time, we probably could have started reviewing a little while ago. There was an intent to create sort of a conform DD set after the estimate, thinking there might be some major changes, but that didn't happen. And bearing in mind that we're gonna be at 60% CDs in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Just trying to set a deadline. I don't know if everyone's good with trying to get comments back to the designer on your segment by, say, next Monday. That work?
We sent out the Bluebeam studio
Yeah.
to everybody, and then a worksheet for those that don't use Bluebeam to
Yeah.
put their comments together. So get those. We'll have access to pulling together all the comments from Bluebeam. Then John can send us that information, and then we can go from there.
Mark, I'm not certain that I'm on your mailing list for all things, so. if
You
can
are,
just-
Nancy, but this one was just the people that were selected to
Oh,
do the review.
just.
This is just the
Oh,
drawing
okay.
review.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send you the link and everything. Careful what you wish for. I'm gonna get you
I've
everything.
looked
So,
at it.
so,
Did you have any further thoughts about my comments concerning geotechnical roundtable?
Yeah.
Oh, not me.
Yeah, I think John wanted to, let me put a drawing review to bed. I think we're good with that. As part of the review, John wanted to sit down, and I agree with him, and maybe meet with you and your geotech and talk about the subsurface foundations in the geotech report. And make sure that we feel confident with what we're doing. It was great that John was pushing back on that. It's great that we did that peer review on the geotech. The results didn't come back too different. I think we got a geotech that looked at them a little differently. So we want to make sure that we're comfortable going down the path we're going down. We don't get into a situation where we think we're good, and then we put a shovel in the ground and we find something different. From a budgeting standpoint, where we stand today, we are looking at something that's potentially a little better than our budget, but we're not reducing our budget. So you could argue that we saved some money, and if we had to turn around and go backwards, we just put some money into contingency that would come out. So I felt comfortable with that. If we were right at budget right now, assuming that all the savings from the geotech, I would feel a little uncomfortable budget-wise. But John had reached out to me to set up a meeting, with you on that, and I just forgot to send you an email.
Yeah, there are some obvious errors in the geotechnical report, which I think we need to sort out before we go to developments. There are things being said in that report which are clearly not consistent with what they found in the ground. So we need to go.
Yes.
Sure.
I'm assuming that once the people that have been assigned to review the drawings, and there's a form, and I know there's also so I'm assuming that the feedback from them will be available to all the members of the permanent
Yeah.
building committee.
Absolutely. But that goes to the, designer, that should get
Okay.
disseminated to everyone.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a good point, thank you.
thank you.
All right, good with the drawing review. Close to the end of the meeting. Pre-qualification. I'll just say quickly that we have to have a 5-person committee. 3 people need to be from the town, 1 person from the OPM, 1 from the architect. There's a bit of work to do, with this, reference checking, things like that. We want to talk, Mark, if you want to talk about, you and Joel want to talk about that process, and then we'll try to figure out who those three people are.
So
We
we
also talk about the proposal on the table from.
Yeah, I'll talk about the process a little bit. If Peter's still with us, I'll ask Peter to talk about the services that we mentioned earlier. But we have applications or forms that have to be filled out from DCAMP for the general contractors and the subcontractors, or the trade contractors. So we have drafts of those already sent over. We sent over to people to look at today. That has to be vetted by this committee and then vetted by the town legally to make sure everything is okay on the forms. And then depending on if we select this service, the service provides templates all electronically on their links to follow up with all this information, extend things to the general contractors, extend invitations to the subs. They fill all this information, it all goes back to the service. They rank them, they take their reference checks, they handle all the information. As Pat was alluding to, it's a lot because you can get up to 80 file sub-bidders going after a project. And if each of them give you 3 references to check, you go back and look at all those references, and one of the services provides doing all that for you. And then they'll take the information and rank it. So then the committee can just review the information that's been submitted to them without spending 8 to 16 hours per committee member chasing down references and chasing down information. So it's a pretty streamlined process. As we showed about in the calendar earlier, we've got some time to put this information together, but if we elect to go with one of these services, it's going to really streamline it and get that information together. Peter, do you want to chat just briefly about the services?
Sure, I can do that. Good evening, everybody. As you probably have heard, and I'll repeat some of the words, but yes, the pre-qualification process is lengthy. It does involve 3 members from the district or the town, which is Reading, the OPM, and the designer. I would guarantee we have 16 current file sub-bid trade categories, 1 general contractor, so a total of 17 various contractors to pre-qualify. If you average, say, 6 contractors who will be submitting to be pre-qualified, that's 102 contractors, 102 evaluations to evaluate, score, do reference checks on. It is a lot of work, and with all 5 members, each of the members will be doing 1/5 of the workload. So some of the steps to do: establish the pre-qualification committee, a group of 5. Select a chair, prepare the request for qualifications. While Mark indicated there's a draft, that's just kind of a template. one of the services that one of the vendors offers is they will prepare that qualification statement called an RFQ, request for qualification. We'll have to work with Central Register, Combis, which are 2 state publications, to advertise for qualifications from contractors. We'll advertise in a local newspaper and also place it on the town's website. After that, contractors will start to reply saying, yes, I would like to be pre-qualified to work on this project. They will submit, they will have to get the RFQ sent to them. We'll have to track it. We'll have to get all their information so we can send them addendums. After that, we'll have to send out any addendums if there are any, with questions and things of that nature. We'll have to receive all the evaluations from the contractors, which I'm predicting is going to be over 100. We'll have to perform at least 3 reference checks on each of the contractors. So that's a minimum 300 references to check. We'll have to do a scorecard on each one of them to see if they qualify. We'll have to prepare a final report. We'll have to send out notifications to each of the contractors after the scoring is complete to tell them if they are pre-qualified, quote, accepted or rejected. Then we'll have to post the results back in the Central Register, back in Combis, back on the town website. So there's a few services that is all done electronically these days. It's reduced the manual labor effort tremendously. So we have 2 proposals. One from a firm called Project Dog, and another firm called BidDocs Online. BidDocs Online does the majority of the work. Project Dog does not offer the same level of service BidDocs does. For example, BidDocs will generate the pre-qualification document we just referred to. They have a template, they can populate it. We'll have to give them some base information, but they can populate it all in accordance with Mass General Law. They will host the RFQ solicitation when we're ready to advertise in Combis, the Central Register. We will give them a web address in those advertisements that will go directly to BidDocs and or Project Dog, whoever we choose. Both firms will generate and track all the solicitations that are requested from the contractors. They will, let's see what else. BidDocs will perform all the reference checks for us, as opposed to the committee members picking up the phone or sending out emails to the various references. As I was mentioning, there's going to be at least 300 reference checks. That's kind of a time consuming, as in a lot of time, a lot of effort to do that. But if it's being self-generated by the technology that BidDocs has. They also will notify the proposers, that is BidDocs, that they've been selected or rejected. They will compile a complete list of all the bidders, or I should say the proposers, not the bidders. They're not bidders yet. They will post and send out all distributions for addendums. They will provide a secure access, and they will separate any financial reporting that is also a requirement within the qualification statements. The qualification committee would like to know the financial stability of each contractor that's submitting on the project. So that is a separate and secure site. And they also generate a final report, and they will also send out, as I mentioned, notifications to each contractor on their final score. So in short, the online electronic process certainly assists each of the members of the pre-qualification committee. if this was to be done manually, it's going to be no less than 24 to 30 hours per committee member to participate in the process. Having it done electronically, it's all hosted, it's secured, and quite frankly, the way the industry is going, this is the way the contractors prefer it because they've done it over and over again, and they're already kind of almost preloaded into some of these online services already. So we make a recommendation as an OPM, and I'm certainly sure the design team would say the same, having gone through this process many times in the past, that the online process is the preferred way. It's very efficient, it's very secure, and it's very streamlined, and it's very accurate at the end. And it's preferred method for the contractors who will be submitting on the project because of its streamlined effectiveness. And the other kind of caveat to this is when the contractors are pre-qualified and they are selected, that same list can be generated and sent right back out to them at the time of bid. So if we have 100 contractors between the filed sub-bid trades and the general contractors, quote, pre-qualified, when it comes time to let them know the project is ready to bid, it's a click of a button in a sense, and an automatic email goes to each of those offices to tell them, by the way, starting arbitrarily December 15th, whatever the date is, the Reading Retail project will be ready for bid, and the documents will be loaded and located here, here, and here, and so on. I guess that's my quick briefing, if I could call it that. So what I can say is it's really not an apples to apples proposal from Project Dog to Bid Docs. Project Dog is not as enhanced on the pre-qualification phase of contractor solicitations and collection of information. Bid Docs is way ahead of the curve when it comes to the online electronic filing, compilation, scorecarding, reference checks, notifications, and resources online to assist the pre-qualification committee. So our recommendation, based on having gone through this multiple times, hands down, in my opinion, Bid Docs provides superior service on this particular phase. That's not to say Project Dog or other firms will not be equally competitive when it comes time to bid the project. I'm speaking strictly on the pre-qualification phase at this time. And the value or the proposed cost submitted to us by Project Dog is $595. And if there's 14 categories to check off what kind of service they provide, I think let me see, right now there's 5 categories that they can provide out of the 14 that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Bid Documents provides all 14. And some of the heavy lifting is what I find as the preferred method with Bid Documents Online. Bid Docs Online's price is $4,500. I will say this, in the budget that you saw earlier this evening, there is a line item already established for this kind of service within the budget. I think it's row 7 on the budget under the category advertised bid hosting and printing, category 100, 200. There's a $10,000 line item in the budget set aside for this kind of service. I also feel the $10,000 will be sufficient based on what we've experienced in the past for the pre-qualification online hosting as a hosting manager, also for the online hosting when it comes time to bid the project, to notify the contractors that the bid documents, the and the like are available, and they can therefore submit their bids electronically as well, as opposed to handing in envelopes and opening them up. So, and that $10,000 should also handle probably 6 to 10 sets of bid documents printed on paper. Should certain members of the building committee want a paper copy of the drawings and specs when the project is out to bid for their files? Should any town agencies want them? Should the building commissioner want a set of stamped drawings as well? So again, in my view, the $10,000 that's in the budget should and could and will, I believe and feel, handle the pre-qualification costs that we just spoke about, the bidding costs for online hosting, and some printing costs.
Thank
So,
you.
sorry.
I'm sorry, Peter, did I cut you off?
Nope, I'm all done. I probably went too long, but
No, you're good, you're good. That was great information. I have experience with both of these platforms. They're both, very good online platforms, easy to use. Biggest difference is Project Dog. It's pretty much a repository. It's a glorified FTP site where they're gonna take all the documents. They'll handle some of the advertisements and stuff for us. But Bid Docs Online will actually, will actually take the information and analyze the data for us and do a lot of that work. And I think the cost is definitely worth it. Oh, Joel, if you have experience, you agree?
Well, worth it.
Yeah. Anyone has any?
You get a much better response when we get the requests from them. They're super easy to answer, as opposed to getting on the phone with someone that doesn't do this for a living.
Yeah, okay. Did anyone else have any thoughts on that? I think we're gonna try and cover maybe a vote.
For the committee.
Committee, the committee, yeah,
And
you
then
just set the
committee will
committee.
decide on.
Yeah, maybe a vote on the committee with the, a little bit of a discussion about what the committee is charged with. The committee will have the authority to, there are some little things that need to go into that RFQ, like just a description of the project, which is pretty mundane. But there's also, contractors need to submit on similar projects, and there's a definition of what a similar project is, and that's in the purview of that subcommittee. Mark?
Before you head up onto that, so can you just walk us through the process for a second? So let's say we agree to these folks, they do all this in the pre-qual phase, bring it to the committee of 5. Right, so all that information comes singing in, which includes references that they've contacted, all the information that should have registered, yada, 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 all that stuff comes in. The group of 5 then evaluates the information that's come in, and then comes back essentially to us and says, okay, we got these recommendations, we've gone through it, we agree, disagree, here are the ones that we think are making sense. Brings that to the full committee votes, questions, votes, and then that's essentially the pre-qual things.
Yeah.
And that's a similar process at bid, except it would be smaller.
Yeah, so a couple of things, all the respondents, subcontractors and general contractors will be scored. And 70 is a passing score. 70 is a passing score. So it's not like it graded on a curve where you're like, we got 10 electricians, so we're gonna cull down the top 7. We only got 2 electricians, so we're gonna take them both. The criteria will be set up before it goes out. This is the requirements, be scored. The contractors, and most contractors will meet the requirements. So then the pass or fail, there'll be some review of certain things by the committee, maybe a deeper dive. If there's a contractor at a 69 or a 71, there might be a deeper dive to look at who those references are and things like that. And that subcommittee will come back with a recommendation to this group. We'll vote on it. We'll, vote on it to accept their recommendation. At the bidding phase, a little bit different in that those pre-qualified general contractors will bid, and we'll come back with bid results. And we'll make a decision on the low bidder if they're a responsible and eligible bidder.
And we may or may not hire a firm like this again in that bid phase. Understanding that?
We'll probably hire one of these firms in the bid phase. They handle, like, the bidding will be online. So as opposed to years ago, you'd come in with an envelope.
Right to the office right before the deadline.
Which still happens occasionally. You drop it on the hard bid, and Newton, right? Does it that way. Newton, but you'll, they'll be basically typing in numbers that appear at 2:00, all the results go through. But so that online, both of those companies can handle that online portion, which I would say is a lighter lifting load. It's less complicated at the bidding phase as it is at the pre-qualification phase. And again, Bid Docs Online is like taking the data and actually analyzing it, scoring it, and getting the references, where Project Dog is basically gonna collect these things and give us access to them and handle questions and things like that.
Thank you, thanks for the explanation.
So, I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts, questions, comments? We're down to, we need to establish a committee. I've got Joe as our first volunteer member of the committee. There'll be we'll need to know who from your, I don't know if it's gonna be you, Mark, and you, Joel, or no, Joel's like, nah, me.
Someone else does it in our office, a CA person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we need two more. I think,
Procurement, does procurement get involved?
I would think someone from the town, I think the remaining two spots, should be someone on the building committee and someone on the town side related to procurement. I don't know.
Yeah,
Good.
sorry. Yeah, so sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I think somebody on the town side related to procurement would be good. That would either be Jane or Katie. Katie is technically the person that handles day-to-day procurement. Jane's very familiar with the project, so one of those two would be appropriate, I would say.
Okay.
Do you need to determine the town staff right now? Could it just be you as the committee member and then the staff kind of figures it out after? Or, I don't know the rules, the exact rules.
The five people that are gonna be put together on the committee are the ones that are gonna do all the work going forward, so.
Okay,
The
so
question is, if we need to name the names now, or we can say it's gonna be this person, it's gonna be either Jane or Katie, this person.
Well,
Joel.
Jane's on vacation, so it's Jane.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't say it.
It's gotta be it.
I mean, it's Wednesday, if the decision is made, getting the committee together and saying, yes, let's go Project Dog, we need to set up a contract with them, then we can start right away, review their template with all the information, and the committee's gonna start doing stuff like that. And the assumption is we'll do virtual meetings, quickly to get people together when the time works for everybody. But yeah, as soon as we know who those five are, we need to, swear them in or whatever they need to do to get them in there, so. So Jane or Katie, and then one more person, right?
Joe Huggins,
Joe,
Jane.
TTH, BHA, Jane, and then one more.
Anyone on the PBC, so it should be someone that, I don't know, I guess, understands the subcontractors and contractors in the market. I think I'm precluded, I would say, from being on this committee, because I'd be evaluating competitors and people I work with, so. So I don't know, if I could get Greg to volunteer.
It's not listening.
Oh, I'm listening.
I said that last week.
I'm not volunteering.
What if we nominate you?
Could respectfully decline.
Mike would be really good.
He's not here.
He's not here, and he's on the finance, we put him on the finance,
We did.
so. And we could, we could list Mike, if he feels like it's too heavy a burden, we can swap him out on the finance part of it.
Well,
Plus, Kirk's already on the finance, or if Ari wants to volunteer.
Pre-qualification is gonna jump right into it now until November.
Yeah,
Financial is much later, especially when you get into change orders and a lot of stuff during construction, so they may have some input on the invoices and things through design, but I wouldn't see a lot, but it's more in construction.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we're gonna be done with pre-qualification by early November,
right, it's a hit now.
right?
I'm good with nominating Mike, as like someone else, and, you can, Mark, you and Peter can get back to us on any formalities if we need to change these names with
Sure.
this vote. But we have Joe, Jane, Mike, your person, does CA, you, Mark?
Yep.
Actually, I can do it for BH Plus A. I've gone through this for Newton recently, or last year, and then we went through Fishburne Housing through BitDoc Online, so.
Makes it easier.
Perfect,
Don't have to ask Tom.
perfect.
So we can add Nancy, you wanna go for a motion right now?
Sure. Make a motion to establish a committee consisting of Mike Mazzaro, Dan Chen, Jane Wellman, Mark Stafford.
That's me.
Yep. And
Mike Mazzaro.
Joe Huggins, and Joe Huggins.
Say Mike Mazzaro too.
Yes, I did, I said Mike, he's on
Is
first.
the word committee the appropriate?
That's pre-qualification.
Pre-qualification
Word committee.
subcommittee.
Sorry. Or working.
Well, actually, in the language that DCAM calls it pre-qualification committee, it doesn't call it a subcommittee.
Okay.
So let's stay with the language.
Yeah, committee.
It's a pre-qualification committee, it's gotta be that,
Okay,
Yeah.
it is.
that's what it's called in all the regulations.
And a lot of times they morph into the bidding committee too, so I mean, the same group usually carries on, so,
Okay.
but we're ahead of ourselves.
Do you need a second? Is that complete? I'll second.
Any discussion? Or just, maybe just to amend or as a clarification, that committee would be authorized to go ahead with the bid docs online. They would be authorized to finalize the pre-qualification on behalf of the committee and basically do everything that needs to be done for that
I
committee.
think we should vote to go bid docs.
Separate?
Because separate, because it's
We'll do
a
that.
budget number that we're going
Okay.
to be spending.
Any other discussion? Okay, going to vote, Nancy Toomey,
Yes,
John Coop,
Yes.
Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Claire there, Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Nancy Zimlock,
Yes.
Mark Doxa,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes, motion passes.
make a motion to use bid docs as the pre-qualification vendor.
Second.
Want to put the proposal amount there now?
Of $4,500.
It's $4,500.
For $4,500.
Second.
Put on the agenda to vote.
No, here's all of us.
Pre-qualification.
Yeah, pre-qualification for bid docs, using bid docs for the cost of $4,500.
Any discussion? We'll go vote, Nancy Toomey,
Yes,
John Coop, Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Nancy Zimlock,
Yes.
Mark Doxa,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes, motion passes.
Thank you.
We got one more motion.
let's adjourn.
To adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
If only this guy, Judy sitting here looking at that whole case, for the last 2 hours, and the title which from a
Fiasco.
fiasco. Is somebody trying to tell us something?
Yeah, new building.
We avoided A.
Somebody gonna turn the book around.
With that, we'll vote, Nancy Toomey,
Yes.
John Coop,
Yes.
Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Nancy Zimlock,
Yes.
Mark Doxa,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes, motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
FYI, next meeting's on the 8th of October, not the first Wednesday, it's the second Wednesday due to the holidays.
Right.
Okay.